Now I don't know about heaven, no, but I can tell you about hell. Right now, I never lived in a mansion, not at all, but I spent time in a cell, been locked up. I couldn't speak about the good like that, cause all I ever known was bad. You already know, I guess I'm gonna die a gangster. Fuck, that's all I ever really had. That's all I ever really had. That's all I ever really had. But I'm stuck on the corner. That's all I ever really had. If I slip, I'm a goner. That's all I ever.
Man, what's happening? What's happening, y'all? IUG is back. We doing politics. I'd like to welcome Sandra from Ask Sandra, Ruffy Gotti from Thiz Latin, and the one and only CEO, Big Indies, Lady Divinity. What's happening, y'all?
Hey, what up?
What's up? What's up? Okay. Big talkers. I see it, man. Y'all not all at once. You feel me? No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Hey, here. Of course. Always. Just like old times.
Man, you already know. Divinity, Sandra, we was rocking, you know what I'm saying, for a minute. Ruff, is good to have you too. I love having the different perspectives. You know what I mean? We want to kind of jump right into this. Obviously, the IUG plays uncensored music videos every single night on TV, in your living room, at your bars and nightclubs. But not only are we playing uncensored music videos, we want to have a conversation with peeps, man. We want to be able to talk, chop it up, you know what I'm saying, and talk politics, let everybody know what's going on. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight when it came to politics was, Sandra, I believe it was corruption, homelessness, and what was the third one? Y'all remember the third one? I'm gonna have to get to. I'm gonna have to check the notes. I'm gonna have to go to the note. I thought Sandra was my note taker. I'm gonna blame on Sandra. But we're gonna start off. Let me start off with homelessness first. I'm gonna let y'all know. I'm gonna go left, right. So I'll throw it to Sandra. Sandra go to Ruffy passing the Divinity, and let's start off first. I know a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, we have a homeless crisis in the Bay Area. You know, maybe we do, maybe we don't. Some people say it don't even exist. Man, Sandra, would you start off by letting me know, do we have, first off, you got to be able to acknowledge you got a problem. Do we have a homeless crisis in the Bay?
We do have a homelessness crisis in the Bay. I think that is due to a lot of policies that came with good intentions, but bad implementation. I think that a lot of the issues that we've had around homelessness has been people wanting to lead with, certain ideas that, are good on paper. Like, let's be passionate, let's help out the homeless, let's do navigation centers. And I think that all is good and important. But the reality is that you need to address the underlying issues around homelessness, mental health, substance use, all of those things that contribute to someone being, out in the streets. The other issue that I think is important to think about homelessness is how we've been addressing it from a financial standpoint, right? Like, where does the money go? I think that what a lot of people don't understand is that when an organization gets money, a lot of times that money goes to consultants, that goes to, indirect costs, like all of these things go into how that money is spent. But I think one of the issues that we've gotten into is that we've built homelessness to be kind of a business. And so if there's no homelessness, then the money dries up. And so there isn't really an incentive to solve the problem.
Oh, that's what's up, Ruffy, man. You wanna catch that? Oop, what you thinking about that?
Yeah, you know what? I do agree with that though, because I feel like you gotta tackle some of those issues too, like that, like the substance abuse and the mental illness. Some of these things ain't being addressed, and I just feel like that definitely is contributing to like the homeless population in the Bay from what I've seen.
Now you in the turf,
So-
Ruff. You kind of in the trenches, right out there in Fremont. When you say ain't addressing the drug addiction, you're suggesting that the drug problem and the homeless problem, they kind of 1 + 1 or what?
I feel like it's not always the case, but I mean it's definitely like prevalent in what I see in the Bay, but just like Sandra was saying earlier, like some of these things, you got to address some of these things like at the root. The homelessness is kind of just like the outcome of something else, of like another underlying problem.
The symptoms is what you're saying, not the actual cancer. That's the symptom of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Divinity, let's swing you what's your way. Does the Bay Area? You lived in Oakland. Talking about the trenches.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. it's gotten so much worse since I lived there in 2020. I went just like a couple weeks ago, and it's like almost doubled in severity. I believe that the drug problem has some correlation with homelessness, but I also feel that the corruption plays a huge part because it's not getting addressed. It's like people are throwing money at these politicians and they are not doing anything about it because then if they do fix the problem they're not going to get any money, so I think it all boils down to greed at the end of the day. And I also heard a speech where Gavin Newsom was talking where he even said, oh, well, I'm not going to keep throwing money at a problem that is like basically broken, like, so in other words he's like washed his hands with it. And they had over $24 billion to fix the homelessness, and it's gotten worse. How is that possible? If they just even if they wanted to keep up their even if they wanted to continue the fraud that they're doing, obviously, if they just put $1 billion, we would have seen that. I haven't even seen $1 billion worth of difference. So if they really wanted to be greedy, they should have did it the right way, which was at least fix the problem and pocket the rest. I'm not saying that's what you should have done, but at least fix the problem. So now we're all on you, looking at you like, what were you doing? Like who's going to address this? When are we going to find this money?
No, that's some real right there. Divinity, I think one of the things that you hit right there, there's a couple things. You was talking about billions, not the M, the capital B.
Right.
You're talking about not just the state, even on a county level. Alameda County Board of Supervisors are talking about spending, $2 billion on homelessness. They could have built a Oakland Raiders style stadium, just the county of Alameda, and housed every homelessness just off of 1 year's budget of homelessness. Yes, we don't see any of that. But then there's the next thing you said. Divinity, you threw a they on there. You threw a who on there. So Sandra, I'm going to ask you, when we say who and they, when we talking about Oakland, California, town business, when we talking about Fremont, when we talking about the Alameda County in general, is that Trump territory? Is that a big red county? What's going on? I want Divinity's like, she wants to know what's going on.
I will say this: Trump has nothing to do with that. Those counties been looking this way since before Trump's in office. And even though the cities might be Republican or whatever you just said, the state is still very Democratic, and that's having the biggest influence over what's happening, what we're seeing right now.
No, I think you're gonna get some.
I live in LA, okay? I was from the Bay, so I've seen both of the worst of the worst. And that's what's bothering me so bad, because California was once a great, beautiful state. There wasn't this issue 10 years, 20 years ago. There was some homelessness, but it's gotten significantly worse. And it's important to note that we've had Democrats in office ruling for the majority of that time.
Come on, I want to kind of jump on that. I want to keep that real, Sandra.
Who got the money? The Democrats. Who got the money? $24 billion.
No, not just that. Is there any, like she's saying, here in Alameda County, we talking about these big budgets. Is there a single Republican on the Board of Supervisors that could even vote no against anything that a Democrat wanted to do right now?
No.
No.
Actually, no.
I think it's important to think about how money flows, right? Money comes from taxes, property taxes.
Don't you try to spin us, Sandra. We're putting you on the hot spot.
Well, I think it's about how money flows and how money is spent, right? And I think that it's important to think about homelessness not in terms of like left or right or Republican, not Republican, because in the reality, it's an issue about economics. And in that sense, Republicans and Democrats are just as bad. It's like when one is in office, the other guy's a boogeyman, but really they're in cahoots together. Because whether you're looking at a Republican or the Democrat, they're getting funded by the same people. Private equity, homeowners association.
No, we get that. But what we're saying is the implementation right now, you're getting the Democrats, Republicans are working together, and they're giving us a budget. So the taxes have been paid, the budget has been allocated, the politicians now have the money. It has left the federal issue, it has now left the state issue, and it is now in the county of Alameda. Is the county of Alameda's homelessness crisis, is that being ran by a right-wing a party, or is that being ran with the Democratic monopoly?
I mean, right
Far
wing,
left. Far left. Far left.
all the folks on the board of supervisors are actually pretty conservative. If you look at their policies and how they implement them, they may have a D in their name, but they're a deeply conservative board. Most city councils are very conservative, and you got to think about it when you're voting for these folks in these spaces in the Bay Area. They have to run as Democrats, but the reality is they vote like Republicans. And so Republican, it's not about Republican or Democrat, it's about, are they conservative? Are they for...
When you say conservative, though, what do you mean by that? I think that's the disconnect where people don't understand. They just want to either blame a Democrat or blame a Republican, whichever side you're on. When you say that they're conservative, are you saying like values like, hey, when it comes to, for example, tenants' rights, or rent can only be so high? You know, if your rent is as high as a house payment, they should be able to regulate that. But Republicans do not like regulations, so oftentimes Republicans will say, hey, we don't want big government intervention. We don't want the government telling us how to run our business, so we don't want any regulations. And if I own a house, I could sell that, I could rent it out at $10,000 a room if I want. Don't live there. However, the Democrat would be like, hey, we want to regulate that. Housing is a, what do they call it, a right? It's like getting medical treatment. You need that to live. You need it like you need food. And so they want to regulate it. They want to say, hey, you shouldn't, your rent shouldn't be $6,000 a month. You know, if your rent is the same amount as a house payment, then you're paying too much rent. And so those are the actual values. But what's happening here is you have a bunch of Democrats that are wearing the Democratic hat, and they're voting for some Republican values. So would you call that corruption? Would you call that, is that directly on the Democrats? But what we can't do is blame the Republicans, because they're clearly not involved. Their values might be involved, but the people in power here in Alameda County, Sandra, wouldn't you say that's a monopoly of nothing but Democrats?
Absolutely. I think that the issue around the party in Alameda is that you have a lot of folks that are wealthy, that are from affluent areas, that don't have to actually live day-to-day consequences of how the votes are distributed, right? And so you have these folks that do all these policies that, like I said, look good on paper. Let's decriminalize drugs. Let's, build homeless centers. Let's just be compassionate. It's okay if someone sleeps on the street, because it's really coming from a point of view of like, they want to feel good about the things that they say, but they're not the ones that have to actually live with the consequences of those votes and how those resources are allocated. People that live, I live next to one of the tiny home places, and as a person, a human being, do I think those people should have those tiny homes? Yes, but I also have to deal with the theft, with the prostitution going on my street in a pretty like normal street in Castro Valley. I have to deal with the trash. I have to deal with all of those things, and so there's a big disconnect between the people who are elected and the ecosystem that they create for ourselves, electing their own friends, doing endorsements amongst each other. And so they get elected amongst a small circle of people that are very disconnected from the actual people. But really, it's our fault because people don't vote. And so they really disenfranchise themselves.
Let me throw that to Ruff.
I agree with that too. Yeah, I agree with like the not voting too. I feel like people just need to really get more involved. Like look at the city budgets, look at the county budgets and the committee agendas, and see what meetings are going on for these different types of committees. Like that, I know they have like a committee for like homeless. I'm not like super up on like all the politics and all that, but I know that there's like a committee that like supposed to be addressing homelessness. But just like they were saying, like where's the money at? Like what's really happening? Where's the programs at? You know what I mean?
And let's remember on that subject, to motivate people, to get people involved, when it comes to a budget, we're not talking about advanced nuclear physics. A budget is basic addition and subtraction. Anybody who pays rent has a budget. My paycheck is X amount, rent is this amount. You just dealing in the billions. Hey, I'm gonna give $1 million to my my sponsor, I'm giving $1 million. He donated to me. I ain't giving him shit. He said no on whenever I needed his endorsement, blah, blah, blah. That's just, subtract this to add to that. That's basic addition. Now, one of the things I want to talk about, another thing that I want to talk about, 1.6 million people involved. That's, Sandra, you were kind of jumping on it. Ruffy, you were saying it too. I'm going to send this to you, Divinity. We have 1.6 million residents in Alameda County. 1.6 million. It's one of the biggest in the country. And out of 1.6 million residents, around 160,000 people actually voted. 1.6 million. And
that's crazy, man. That's crazy.
10% is not even a good F. That's not 40%.
Are you talking about on a local level or on a?
I'm talking about people that participate on whether when it comes to Alameda.
You talking about like the Bay Area?
Yeah, no. Alameda County got 1.6 million.
For Alameda County, okay.
And out of that 1.6 million residents in Alameda, that's Berkeley, Oakland, Fremont, San Leandro, all them cities. Hayward alone got 170,000 people, right? All them different cities. And only 160,000 of them voted in any type of election, whether that's for the president, a city council member, a county elections. Because let's be honest, a lot of times we get lost in the we need to vote for Trump, we need to vote for Biden. If you live in California, your vote is going for a Democrat no matter what. The same way as if you live in Texas, your vote is going to go to a Republican no matter what. It's the collegiate, Sandra, what is it called? The collegiate number or whatever it is.
That's crazy though. That's really crazy. I can't understand how anyone in California, after seeing what the Democrats have done with it, we've put it in their hands for decades.
Wait, hold on. Let me ask you something real quick, Divinity, because that's, I think you were kind of the poster child. When we first started working, you was with the Democrat.
I was.
You're neutral. You've been willing to.
No, I'm a total centrist at this. Like, I'm totally not on one side or the other. But I mean, I'm just using common sense. I mean, we've given it to the Democrats. We've hoped that they would do the right thing, and it's just been more corruption. So I can't understand how any California can continue to vote for something that's not produce any results. That's all I'm saying. At some point, you have to use your brain. Democrats are the party of virtue signaling, right? So they want to make you feel all these feelings, but in the end of the day, it's just a bunch of baloney. So I'd rather go with the party who has a better reputation for results than just people that are just love to talk and they just love to make you feel a type of way. And I'm over that, And I think as a Californian and seeing, we have to find a solution. These streets are terrible. Not only are they terrible, they're dangerous. People are dying. Fentanyl. People are mentally ill. They're killing people. We can't continue to go on like this. So at some point, you got to get out of your feelings and realize this is not the way to go. This is not it. We already gave them a chance. I gave them a chance, but I don't see nothing. I see it. What I do see is it's gotten worse. So I'm not going to
evolve. I've watched you evolve. You were pretty progressive with us. You had a lot of progressive, ideas. You saw, you invested in the politician. Was it that you saw kind of politicians, their policies didn't work, or they didn't even try to push their policy? What was kind of the nail that you saw where you were like, you know what? I sat there and supported y'all, and you gave me 2 fingers in the back.
Okay. The main issue that I have is mostly going to be with the governor, because I don't like how $24 billion just disappeared. That's one thing I didn't like. Another issue is how they handle the fires out here in Los Angeles. Another issue is the lack of police, that, when you call the police now, you have to wait for 2 hours, or at least in LA. You have to wait for 2 hours to just get a hold of somebody. There's real danger happening outside sometimes. I've had to call the police and I didn't get anybody at all. So that could have been my life. That could have been whoever's life. But I've seen this too many times. It's I don't feel as protected under Democratic rule. I don't see the streets getting clear. There's way more transients. They're more aggressive now because they're on fentanyl. There's just too many. Oh, don't even get me started on the whole COVID situation, how that was handled. I have so many issues with the last administration that actually it really affected my life, where I said I can no longer vote this way again. I've had people die that I love from fentanyl overdose. Where does fentanyl come from? Like, this is all these are all my personal experiences. It's not just what hearing someone speak. I've literally lived this. I've lived it in every single way. It's affected me in every single way. The last administration really did a number on me.
So it sounds like you're talking about lived experiences from federal policies and state policies.
Both.
I do understand.
Both.
So because you lived in Oakland, California, and Sandra and I will go to a lot of meetings, and we'll get people that represent Oakland, California, but they're bougie yuppies. Divinity, you didn't live in the Oakland Hills, right? You experienced.
No, I lived in East Oakland. Yeah, I lived in the hood.
You lived in the I didn't want to say it that way, but yes, you lived in the deep east. So when people talk about a homeless situation, they don't understand the situation that was on your block. Could you kind of explain that a little bit?
Oh yeah, so I saw it firsthand. I thought that's why I left Oakland. Actually, that's part of why I left Oakland, because during Biden's administration, I saw things continuously go into a decline, and so I thought maybe I should leave. I went to LA, and to my surprise, it was just as bad or worse. There's actually worse situations over here in LA, but I'm in a decent area. I'm not in the hood anymore. I'm right next to all the main attractions, right next to Hollywood, right next to Burbank. I'm like in the middle of what's supposed to be a good area, but even here, there's been murders right by my house, actually, right in a main attraction, and the murders are taking place from transients because they're just mentally ill. They're on fentanyl. They're killing people.
They've been emboldened. Now Sandra, let me swing this to you real quick. Now it kind of sounds like what Divinity, a lot of her frustration is coming out of presidential level, right? She was talking about Biden. Biden's frustrated. Would you say the homeless crisis, would that be more directly related on a national level, on a state level, or a county level, or a municipal, a city level?
So far from what I'm seeing, I believe. I know homelessness is a problem like throughout our country, but I think it's the biggest problem in California. So I've seen it in Northern California and Southern California, and it's the worst. I've definitely traveled outside of California, and I haven't seen it as bad as Cali. So I think it's mostly a Cali thing. I know, like I said, it's everywhere in different states, but I haven't seen it anywhere as bad as,
so you think,
as in Cali.
Divinity, you're saying you feel like it's on a national level. Sandra, let me throw that oop to you. Do you think the homeless level is that issue? Is that coming from is your opinion is that it's a state issue, California, the Democratic kind of policies on that? Do you think it's Trump, Biden, federal level? What's your feeling of that? And then we'll kick it to Ruffy afterwards.
I think that it's an issue around, I would say like it's a lot of local politics, and it's just kind of the landscape of, it kind of trickles down, right? We have a system now where folks, they can't own homes. And so if people can't own homes and they're lower income, they don't build wealth. And so everything starts ticking down. And so it's like people that used to be able to own homes now have to rent. And people that used to have to rent are now in shelters. And people
let me ask you on a policy, because
that kind of trickle down. And so it's like, it's easy to look at the symptom of being like, there's homelessness everywhere. But really it's affordability around homes. It's a lack of protections for tenants. It's a lack of being able to buy homes. And it's like you can't address this one little thing of like homelessness, which is the big symptom that we all see. But it's really the system around housing and the housing ecosystem that's the problem. And the thing is like we talk about California and how bad it is. And I will say that the homelessness is bad. But you also have to remember that California is the 4th largest economy in the world, right? We have things here that you don't have anywhere else. And to be honest, if you go into the red states, those are welfare states, right? Like they don't got no money, they don't got no tax revenue. All the things that we have here that we kind of take for granted, those don't exist in Republican, in red states. And so why do people keep voting blue? It's because they're not perfect, but red is way worse, right? Like,
Sandra, but you kind of, I feel like you're deflecting a little bit because we're talking about. I get what you're saying. You know, whether you're going to lean Democratic or you're going to lean Republican. Do you feel like the policies that are directly affecting the homeless crisis here? Do you feel like those are national policies? Do you feel like those are state policies, or that is your local corrupt politician?
I think you piece it out like that. I think it comes all from the top to the bottom.
Also,
you can't say that it's like this one policy is what we're going to fix homelessness with. It is the whole. You have to look at the whole picture, and that's kind of the problem that we have. Is that people want to like nitpick of like this policy or that policy, but you're not dealing with the root causes that are contributing to homelessness. And so you have this situation where people are blaming one side or the other, but no one's actually dealing with the actual issue, because we know how to solve homelessness, right? Homelessness is not as hard to solve as you would think, right? We had Project Room Key in California during COVID, which was when they would buy a bunch of abandoned hotels, and they would just turn them into shelters. And there would be people there that
wait, so explain, hold on, you rushed it through that. So
but we just need to fund the right solutions, and we need to deal with the underlying issues that are contributing to homelessness. So
Sandra, what you're saying is like there's been some local, whenever you did Project Room Key, was that a national policy? Was that a state policy? It was a what?
It was a state of California initiative.
It was okay. So right there, we're seeing from the state level, whether you're a Biden supporter or whether you're a Trump supporter, there is power within the state where they can. What I think what you're saying is, oftentimes when we see these rundown motels, or they're usually trap motels, what the government did is they stepped in and purchased these motels, and they put all the homeless in there so that way we could take COVID off the streets. So we proved in the COVID era that, hey, if we're wanting to address the homelessness, we don't need the federal government. We needed some of that money, but the state level could put in some state powers, some policies, and affect that instantly and get immediate results. And we saw under Project Room Key a lot of great results. Now, Ruff, what's your thoughts on that, man? Let's swing that to you.
Whether it's like a federal or like a state issue, I would have to say honestly it's both. Just like how kind of like Sandra was saying, it's I think it has like both state and federal responsibilities. Like the federal government, they have like the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the HUD or whatever. I feel like that plays like a bigger role, like with like the funding and the policy part of it. But then when you got like the state and the local government, where they're like the ones that are like on the front lines, that should be like directly addressing the issue. You know what I mean? And I feel like there isn't enough programs like that there should be, especially with given the amount of funding that they have got for that. I feel like there's just there's not enough programs. Like I know that programs like CalWorks, they have like vouchers that you go and you tell them you're going to be homeless, and they'll give you like a 16-day voucher for like a hotel or something like that. But I don't feel like that's really addressing the issue. That's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on the problem. You know what I mean? So, but honestly, I feel it's both, bro.
So you feel it's more at the national and state level. Now let me throw my opinion on there. I'm gonna keep it real. Like I'm gonna lean a little bit with Divinity on this. Even though I'm a Democrat, I do see the journey that not just Divinity has made, but a lot of artists that come into my studio and live that experience that don't live in a nice area of Castro Valley, right? Or a nice area in Alameda County. A lot of folks that are living in the hood, they're saying, hey, these democratic values sound good on paper and even better on social media, but the living experience that we're living in, we got bullet holes in us and the cops don't show up. We got people living on tents, pissing and shitting all over our streets, and then our kids need to go play on those streets. And they're like, hey, we want to work with that. We want to see that. And again, this is where I see some of it on the Republican, on the Democratic side, but a lot of that comes, this is where I kind of want to say, I feel like the issue is what Ruffy was talking about, implementation. And when it comes to implementation, a lot of times, to me, I feel like that's locally. Like for here, for example, I can't talk about LA, I can't talk about any part of Southern California, but here in Alameda County, when it comes to all the local issues, we've seen a monopoly of Democrats. Not only do you not see any Republican, it is like 100% all Democrats. So when it comes to a lot of the implementation issues, it is usually a Democrat that is suggesting, instead of we give $10 million to some of the safety nets that Ruffy just did, we're going to give it to one of our son's nonprofit organization, and he's going to pay all of his buddies $150,000 salaries for the next 5 years. So instead of going into, Project Roomcree, where we're giving $1 million, with $5 million, we could probably buy an abandoned motel and house a bunch of people out that abandoned motel by refixing it. Instead, you have these local developers that try to encourage politicians to say, we don't want you to buy old motel rooms. We want any low-income housing that must come from a brand new development, which usually starts at like 100, if not 100 million, tens of millions of dollars, versus you could just buy old rundown motels and fix them up. But you have these developers that are like, hey, politician, if you want me to endorse a campaign and help out your campaign and donate to it, I want you to give me one of these government accounts, and I don't want to buy one of these fixer-uppers. I want that thing to be sparkling, and that's where millions and millions of dollars are going, and then the leftover money from that goes to salaries. That's where you have these people living in gated communities that hear about Divinity's story in Oakland. Ruffy, they hearing about some of the people you working with, but they ain't living it. And that's where I feel like that's one of the main issues. Sandra, I'm gonna kick that back to you, because I know you actually involved in the implementation, where you're fighting the good and the bad. You're trying to be the big-hearted Democrat. I know you deal with a lot of Republican mentalities, with politicians, whether they're wearing a Democrat or not. A lot of their values tend to vote against some of your democratic ideas and implementation. Tell us your thoughts on this.
I think you're right. It's really about implementation, and it's also about understanding how to solve the problem in the long term. I think the past, 5-10 years, we've been trying to fix things short term. Like, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? But we're not dealing with things that are contributing to all of these issues, right? Like, you talk about long wait times for police. What is the issue there? Is it that police don't care? Is it that it's not being implemented right? No, actually, is that you have all these vacant positions and people don't want to be cops anymore. And so you have this issue where you have cops or police departments that are severely understaffed, poorly run, low accountability. And so it is really about implementation, but more importantly, it's about the lack of actual police officers, right? Same with teachers, same with special education folks.
Let me hold on real quick on the police officers on that. But let's talk about Hayward, for example. Hayward has an $80 million police budget per year. $80 million, right? Now, I'm not going to say it first. I'm just going to give you, Sandra, I know you know the answer, so I'm not going to say it to you. Ruffy, how many cops on duty do you think $80 million purchases at a time? $80 million. How many cops on one shift for $80 million budget?
For the whole city of Hayward?
For the whole city of Hayward.
Is that a year?
No, I'm just saying for one shift. So you got
for a day.
You got one shift. A cop clocks in. He hit his time clock. How many cops are on the beat with him that are keeping him?
I would say it should be like at least 100 or something, right?
Woo,
or
like 100.
Is that high or is that low?
Oh, you way off, Divinity. But I don't want to say high or low. Divinity.
Okay.
When there's one shift, when we wake up in the morning, how many cops are in a cop car patrolling our streets of Hayward, California with $80 million budget?
2.
No, but close. That's
20.
Sad. So let's get this right. Whenever we're taking our kids to school, there is 8 cops on duty at a time to keep 160,000 residents safe. They're getting paid at an annual budget of $80 million. The Hayward Police Department has a budget of $80 million a year for 8 cops.
That's ridiculous.
For 8 cops. Now, obviously, let me put that into context, because I'm probably going to get beat up in the comments. When I say 8 cops, I mean, what cops will do is they'll say, no, technically we have 18 cops. So what happens is whenever shifts interlock, when one shift is ending and another shift is beginning, they have what's called overlap, because they can't have no cops on patrol. So what will happen is the cops that are exiting their shift, they will go and finish up their reports, you know what I mean, and try to write all their police reports. but that's where they have to go to. So unless there's like an officer down shooting, those cops aren't actually working. They're doing paperwork, and the other cops that are starting their shift, those 8 cops are out in the field. So for that hour, they'll have 18 cops on duty, or I'm sorry, 16 cops on duty. So you'll have an overlap. But that's what will be whenever they're talking about our $80 million, we get 16 cops, when in reality, no, you get 16 cops for about, a 2-hour morning shift and a 2-hour evening shift. But the rest of the time, you got 8 cops. So that means if there's an emergency at a school and then there's like a crime going on, a bank robbery, one of them's not going to happen. That's why when Sandra, we know when we saw a shooting in our block in Hayward, it took 45 minutes to an hour for the cops to show up to Hayward. That's the problem right there.
Hey man, that's actually a good question though, bro. I'll go ahead. Sorry.
No, I want to hear your guys.
I was just saying that the Fremont, the police budget for Fremont for 24-25 is 123.5 million. That's for Fremont.
How many cops on duty? And would it be?
That's one thing I couldn't tell you.
Here's another one. Would it be?
But I guarantee you, it's not as many as you would think.
Yeah, wouldn't it be better to just pay security guards? The armed security, where we at least, if they shoot somebody, there's a trial, there's an investigation, there's accountability. There's some type of process there, rather than here you kind of got a gang, patrolling, and if they do something wrong, they got to check themselves to see if it was good. Divinity, you're very Republican now. Most Republicans would say, fund the police, I don't care. They really don't like accountability. They really don't like civilians.
Well, I will say this. So I'm not speaking on what I am going to say is that the lack of police presence, it's proven that there's more crime in cities that have a lack of police presence. Now, we always see the stories of cops with the misconduct and everything, but that's not the majority of police. The difference between where I live and Beverly Hills is that they have their own police presence, and Beverly Hills is always in order. There's hardly anything that ever happens there. Over here, where I live in the valley, there is a lack of police presence, and there's a lot more crime. So police, the defund the police is a very democratic value, and that's not really possible for the crime rate. I mean, we need a stronger police presence. Of course, we need police to be held accountable if they're, doing anything out of order, but the statistics show that we're safer when we have a police presence, because that's like saying we don't need police because humans, the citizens are so stand up around here that
I think what you're saying is the kumbaya mentality sounds great on social media.
It sounds great. It sounds good, but unfortunately, crime is a lot higher. So we need a balance.
Now, Sandra, I know you ready to get up on this because.
If you look at the difference between Las Vegas and Hollywood, the strip of Las Vegas, it's so clean. You don't hardly ever see any transients. But if you go on Hollywood Boulevard, there's transients everywhere, and sometimes they're harassing you. I've gotten harassed by transients. It's just a night and day difference. So it's what's the difference? So police presence.
Let me ask that right there. Hold on. Let me ask. Okay, I think Divinity threw a lot of great, gems right there. One of them was the Democrats, and this is where we get confused: Democratic values, Democratic hat, but Republican votes. Now, one of the things that I just talked about was an $80 million budget for 8 cops. What that tells you is defunding the police didn't happen. $80 million is a lot of money for a police.
Well, that money is getting mishandled somehow.
But there you go. I think that, and Sandra, that's kind of what I want to take to you, because when you take that same budget and you go to Castro Valley, if you go to Roseville or Lincoln, let's be honest, that's a Republican area. The word accountability, when it comes for them police and expectations of the police, is on a whole different level. But then you go to Oakland with more police, and it's nowhere near the accountability. What do you think the problem is there? Is it the lack of funding, lack of accountability? What's your opinion on that?
My
Now, Sandra, come on. I know Sandra over there says, I know she's ready to get on it.
I think that, you know, each of those communities have different issues, right? And so you have to look at what's driving crime. You have to look at how to allocate it. You have to deal with the underlying issues, right? You go to Roseville, most of their crimes probably going to come from the casino and some drunk folks and, you know, maybe a go-kart incident here or there, right? So you don't have the same issues because with policing, because you don't have the same, you know, contributors to poverty that you do in places like Oakland. So you can't really compare the two places, right? Oakland has a long history of disinvestment, of poverty, of crime, of corruption. I mean, corruption is synonymous with Oakland. Mayor Chantal is like literally in a lot of trouble over, you know, her corruption and kind of like what we were talking about, right? Funding through her partner, through her friends, the homelessness, you know, market, right? And so you have like all these issues that are coming into play in places like Oakland. But I think that you are right in to say that corruption and poor allocation of resources and implementation of programs is really at the root cause of all of these things. And it really doesn't come because it's Republican or Democrat, because when you look at these places, it's really about corruption. And honestly, a lot of politicians are corrupt, and it doesn't really matter if there's an R or a D in front of their name. You know, Republicans are known for being super corrupt. Democrats are known for being super corrupt. And so it's really about holding them accountable, showing up, and, you know, not voting these folks in. These folks keep getting voted in because of the special interest money, because of, you know, their ties. It's like a cycle, right? They give money to their friends, and their friends get rich. And then when it comes to re-election time, their friends give them money to get reelected. And it's a cycle. And the money just circulates like that, right? And so you have this circle of corruption. And meanwhile, all us folks are just kind of like standing around like, what is happening to our cities and to our communities? And it's because all the money is sucked out of our communities and put into the pockets of all these corrupt elected officials and corrupt, you know, folks that run these programs that aren't really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so I think it is important to, you know, for us as community and as residents to hold them accountable, to go to meetings, to show up at budget allocation meetings. We just, you know, the way the budget works, it runs on a fiscal year. What people don't know about a fiscal year doesn't start in January. It actually starts in July. So they just passed the budget in Alameda County. And I did some work with residents to get more money for the unincorporated area. It didn't take a lot of us. I mean, we were like 20 folks kicking up a storm about it when we got money. So it's not difficult as residents to mobilize and to get what you want. But it's like, yes, there's corruption, but there's also a lack of accountability from the resident side that don't participate in civic engagement that allows the corruption to happen.
That's some truth right there. No, that's what needs to be heard right there. We can blame.
I agree with that. Like, we need to show up. But my question is, what type of corruption have you seen with the local Republicans versus the local Democrats? Not local?
That's easy. I'm gonna keep. Okay, so that's a good one, Divinity, because you know a lot of times I get a lot of artists where they got a lot of frustration towards the Democrats. The problem is a lot of the Republicans locally that are Republicans, they wear a Democratic hat. So they'll be Republicans, and you can tell by their values, right? When I say values, I mean like if there's a vote for tenant rights. Now, if you're a Democrat, you want to give tenant rights. You want to say, hey, they had a thing called unchecking the box. You know, where like, hey, if you're a felon, that shouldn't even be on there. You know what I mean? If your house is leaking sewage, if your apartment has got your neighbors leaking sewage, literally raw sewage, onto your kitchen, and you complain to your landlord, you should have a right that you're not going to be evicted for complaining. Those are democratic values, right? However, our local politicians, though they wear the Democratic hat, they give it a big fuck no. So that's why we say, hey, these Democrats, they're not actually Democrats. And the policies that are in place aren't democratic policies, because if they were democratic policies, they would have what's called regulation. For example, we'd say rent's too damn high, we want to regulate that because we're Democrats. But these Republicans get into office and then they wear the Democratic hat and they say, we're not going to regulate it. We're going to let it rent drive as high as you want it to be. And so unfortunately, renters who aren't familiar with that process, people that are like Ruffy and ask Sandra, who aren't involved in, nonprofit organizations, policy, they don't understand that. So all they see is a Democrat in office, and they're like, man, Democrats have been in office for hell of years. And to my understanding, if they're voting on something and they get their way, that must be a Democratic policy.
So what you're saying is that these Democrats are shapeshifters.
Yes.
It is.
Well, Republicans, but yes, absolutely.
Democrats, right? They're so, like, on social issues like abortion, immigration, reproductive rights, things like that, right? They use these wedge issues, LGBT rights, all these things that make them, they can say, well, I'm on the left of these issues, so I'm a Democrat. But when it comes to fiscal policies,
Populist, they call them populist policies.
what it really comes down to, they're fiscal conservatives, which means that they are, against regulation, they are against, social programs, like, social programs is like CalWorks, CalFresh, Medi-Cal, the social safety net, right? They're against, any kind of housing policies, they're against all of these things that cost money, that our tax money should be going to, but instead it goes, into consultants and into, pet projects.
It goes into salaries. Instead of it going to a safety net, it goes for a salary. But I think, so that's a big part of the problem.
That goes, to me, that raises more of a red flag to me, because these are so-called Democrats, and that's very on brand when you think about it, because it goes right back into the corruption. It goes back into their always shifting. You don't know what's up their sleeve. It's just like, it's very hard to read, and that's why I'm like, these are the same issues. That is why I'm like, I can't get on that boat anymore.
No, I agree, Divinity. I agree with Divinity.
They're actually more open about their corruption. They are just like, yeah, corruption, absolutely. We are like they're
more upfront, yeah. Right. I'm not saying that they're better or that they're the superior in some ways, yeah. But in a lot of ways, it's like at least you kind of know what you're getting. With Democrats, it's like,
that's not the first. Divinity, you're not the first person to say that.
I got so many things up my sleeve. I don't know. Even Malcolm X said it best. At least the wolf, you know what you're getting. But then the Democrat, the left is like the fox. It's like they look like they're smiling, but then the next thing you know, they're attacking you. And it's like, I you know what? I see it. And one of my friends told me, he was like, if you're a Democrat when you're young, you have heart. If you're a Democrat when you're older, you have no brain or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. That sounds harsh, but I get what he meant by that. It's like, yeah, when you're a Democrat when you're younger, it's because of the compassion, and that's because of what Democrats are supposed to stand for. But then when you get older and you see that they don't really stand for that, that's just what their tune is, then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Then the logic starts kicking in, that they're not who they say they are.
No, you know what? Divinity's hitting. She's hitting something big right there. So Divinity, you and Sandra kind of both hit on two different things. Let me kind of say this. So what Sandra was talking about is we get divided with what's called wedge issues, right? A wedge issue is like, you're either pro-abortion or you're against abortion. We live in California, so just like when we vote for a president, abortions are going to be free here. We're in California, so that don't got shit to do with us. But see, you have your local politicians that try to get us to worry about, look over here at the big fancy lights, because if you look at what's called the populist policies, we'd have a revolution in overnight. There's a ton of people who want rent to be under control. They want to be like, hey, just like the boomer generation, where you're able to have one full-time job and you can afford to buy a house, pay for a car, get health insurance, put your kids through college, you know what I mean? Buy land, buy a boat off one income, right? Yet now, that generation's kids, we can't buy a house with two incomes. Shit, we can barely pay rent with two incomes. And so there is populist policies where the majority of not just Alameda County residents, California residents, Americans, they have these values that we all universally agree on. Hey, if I'm gonna pay taxes, why do I have to? You know what I'm saying? We should have universal health care. Let me go to whatever doctor I want. You know what I mean? The majority of Americans agree with that, but instead you have these local politicians that say we need to focus on trans rights, which that's not saying that they should be ignored, but they get this controversial topic that will get a lot of buzz and clicks and hate, right? And say instead of focusing on something as Democrats, we're universal in California, we should be able to pass any policy because there's not even a single Republican on the board. You know what I'm saying? It's all Democrats, so any policy we put forward, we should be able to pass. Instead, they say, let's worry about Donald Trump, or let's worry about Joe Biden. When in reality, we're in California, bro. That federal shit, that might have to do with Mississippi or Alabama, but California is almost its own country. We have our economy that rivals the United States' country of economy. You know what I mean? So we don't really have to worry about that. And I feel like this is where I obviously, again, I'm a Democrat, but I do agree a lot with Divinity. Like, hey, the Democrats for a long time have been giving us a lot of promises, and there's no excuse why here in California, all those policies shouldn't be in place. We should have universal health care in California. We should have universal dental in California. Rent should not be half the much as what a house payment would be. If you're paying half the much, you should qualify for a house. Rent shouldn't only hurt your credit. Rent should be able to help your credit. You know what I mean? But it can only hurt your credit, right? And so again, in the state of California, there's no reason that this should be able to be prevented. And in the county of Alameda, the liberal San Francisco Bay Area, this is the mecca of progressives. Every one of these policies should be passed. But for some reason, anytime we try to pass these policies, this is where I agree with Divinity, that for some reason, our political leaders, they won't even try. They just, let's focus on how bad Donald Trump is so we can pass this local policy. Let's focus on how senile Joe Biden was 4 years ago so we can't pass this local policy. And so that's why I say, like, I do have a lot of frustration. I do understand why a lot of people like Divinity, who were with the Democrats, who were with the progressives, who are saying, don't believe your lying eyes, listen to what the Democrats are telling you might sound good, might look good. So I do agree with that. Ruffy, come on, bro. What you feel about that?
No, I feel everything you guys are saying, man, about the like I said though, I'm not really like a politician or like that, but I feel like it does come back to like accountability, like you were saying. Like, I mean, if they're not pushing the views of the people and what they want, or then there should be more voting. There should be more people stepping it up and trying to be like, hey, you need to. I think it comes back to the accountability. They need to be we're the ones who should hold them accountable. I'm just going back to like the cop thing that you were telling me about, the 80 million that they had the budget, and they have 8 cops like on the shift. Like that's just crazy, bro. Like we pay the cops, you know what I mean? Like we're the ones paying that. It's like we should be way more involved in and to know, I don't know how you can get people more involved, but I feel like that's part of a biggest part of the issue.
That's what it is. Well, hey, real quick, we've been, you know what I'm saying, we reaching that hour, you know what I'm saying? We reaching that hour. It was a great conversation. Before we go though, Ruffy, man, I know you working with MIPA. Is it still working with MIPA?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Is there any great events we got to look forward to? Anything upcoming in the Bay, Southern Cali, Northern Cali? What's up?
We don't. I don't. No events right now that I know off top. I know that we do have a Cultura night out here in Fremont that we do, for like the lowriding community and for the just for the community in general. Yeah, it's called Cultura night.
Roll them R's one more time. What was you saying? What?
It's called Cultura night. Cultura, like culture. Culture night out.
Okay.
So Yep. So
That's
that
a
one's
Fremont
coming up.
thing,
That's
or?
going to be actually this Friday. This Friday at Lake Elizabeth in Fremont.
Okay, all right. And
Yeah.
hey, I know you still doing the music. And we got any music coming out anytime soon? Well, something to look forward to. What's up?
Yeah, right on, bro. I actually do. I got a song called "Don't Do It." The video's coming soon. It's a positive song. It just has to do. It's about my trials and tribulations. My past. Being formerly incarcerated. It talks about some of those things. So, but yeah, it's called
That's
"Don't
what's
Do
up.
It."
That's what's up.
I'll connect you to that video as soon as possible.
That's leading by example right there, Ruffy. I appreciate you taking the time. And Divinity, I know you got a lot of things in motion. What we got to look forward to, D?
So right now I'm kind of in my PR game right now, helping artists I'm helping artists grow their TikTok following with influencers, with the help of influencers, and like getting their music trending, helping with that. I'm actually working with some of my clients are politicians as well. One of my clients, she's a Democratic politician and publicist, and she hired me to basically just get her on red carpets and like get her brand game going up. So I'm doing a lot of work with just a bunch of different people with different brands, artists, musicians, helping them get exposure, helping them get press, helping them get the right media placements. So that's what I'm focusing on right now. In addition to event production, which is what I just helped co-produce Soldier Boy's birthday party last couple weeks ago now, almost 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
That was a success. That was really really good. I also helped with the Ben Crump gala, so that's why I'm like I work with a lot of Democrats, so it's like I'm not not like fully
You're not a
Republican.
cold member. It sounds like you ain't a
Yeah,
cold member.
no, I'm not. I'm really a centrist. I'm really just someone with like a logic, driven by logic. What makes sense to me.
That's what's
But
up.
I saw Karen Bass. I really admire Karen Bass, what she's doing. I've actually seen a measurable difference from last year to the year before with her initiative in homelessness on Hollywood Boulevard. I saw that with my own eyes. So that's where I'm like, okay, it's not all Democrats. And I know that a lot of people don't think, she's not, no one's perfect, but I have seen it with my own eyes, so I can vouch for her. Um, of course, there's a lot more to do, there's a lot to be done, but I'm rooting for whoever helps makes our streets better. Like I'm not gonna go against who's in power just because they have R or an L or I mean a
I think
Republican.
we got a saying. We say no permanent allies, no permanent
Yeah,
enemies, just
I'm
permanent
only loyal
principles.
to who's showing results, who's providing results. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I mean, as of recently, my views have leaned a little bit more Republican, but I am not a diehard Republican. I'm just like seeing that there needs to be a change made because I saw with my own eyes, I experienced it. I lost family members because of the last administration. I've lost people like literally their lives are gone because of the negligence that happened within that last administration, which I could elaborate on, but I'm not going to right now.
No, that's what's
I've
up.
seen people die. Like, literally, people that I love are not here today because of how that shit was handled.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely
uh,
horrific.
I'm coming from my soul and my brain. I'm not coming from. No one can manipulate me anymore with theatrics and dance routines and we'll give you a no. Like I'm over that. So I'm just here for who's making the biggest change in the most positive way. So yes, I work with Democrats. I still have my viewpoints, but I work with whoever I feel is
No,
going to be.
that's you have to. You got to be involved. And also
Yeah.
with Sandra, because I know Sandra's doing events. Like we just had a very successful event done by Sandra and her team. Is it Slam and ACA, Sandra? Did we lose your audio? Are you checking in? Are you checking out?
I can hear you.
I think we might have lost Sandra's audio real quick. I don't know what's clicking out. Sandra just
Well,
did.
congratulations, Sandra. You're always
Sandra
doing
just
big
did
things.
an event with National Night Out where you had the Alameda County Sheriffs, all kinds of organizations. They put together at the Reed Center on the unincorporated area, 164th, and they feed the community. They have a bunch of kids and a jumper and all these local little organizations, and they just trying to have an event where people could come out and they feel safe in the community. The East Bay, a lot of people can't bring their families, their kids to events, and so Sandra works for her nonprofit organization, and they like we were saying, they try to get people involved. They try to get people active. They try to hold their politicians accountable, because that's really the problem. You can blame the
Yeah,
Democrat,
that's
you
what,
can
I
blame the
respect
Republican,
that a lot. I
but
really respect that work for sure.
if they don't show up, you know what I mean? That's on us. A politician gonna do what it's supposed to do, the same way a snake gonna do what it's supposed to do. So hey, this was a great conversation. Ruffy, Divinity, Sandra, I hope y'all come back. We need to have these conversations more often.
Definitely, bro.
Okay,
Oh
y'all.
yeah,
Well, hey,
appreciate it.
I'm gonna end it there, y'all. IUG. See y'all next Thursday. We out.